It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Here I was faced with another debate about backlog refinement. Just when I thought I wasn't going to hear any more about it, I had someone else approach me and say, "Hey, take a look at your Scrum guide, Lee. Backlog refinement is not in there." And I thought to myself, breathe isn't in there either, but we all breathe every day, right? Why do we breathe? Because it's necessary, just like backlog refinement is necessary. Aha. So, when you think about backlog refinement, I love what it says in a 2020 Scrum Guide. It says, the product backlog is an emergent, ordered list of what is needed to improve the product. It is the single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team. If you think about it from that perspective, that means it should be screaming for refinement, right? Especially in the dynamic world of Scrum. The product backlog is the heart of the project. It's the key that guides your team towards achieving a product goal. It's not just a mundane list of tasks or an ever evolving roadmap to success. It's a combination of what needs to be done to meet critical goals. And as a product owner, it's important that you're able to shed light on the importance of refinement to your teams and demystify all the nuances and illustrate how it can really supercharge the team's journey if they're trying to embrace Scrum. And I think it starts with them understanding the essence of the backlog. So in Scrum specifically, the product backlog is your compass, period. It points the way towards delivering value. It points the way towards the right features and activities. It's managed by the product owner and organized by the product owner. It should constantly be inspected and adapted for new insights, stakeholder feedback, shifting priorities. It's the repository for any type of lightweight documentation, planning, estimates. It's a place to store everything. So once you understand what the essence of the backlog is and why it exists, then you need to break down the anatomy of the backlog. So the product backlog is usually separated into a few different categories. So for me, one of the tricks that I did was instead of taking a single threaded backlog, I used a multi-tier backlog approach, and I'll explain that to you in just a moment. So the first type of information in a backlog is bundle functionality. These are clusters or feature groupings of related features and activities that enhance a product's performance or functionality or builds out a specific subset of functionality for a product or service. The second category is undeveloped ideas. These are sparks of creativity that still need further uh, inspiration. They need further research. They need further support. So these are the ones that are in the ideation and discovery categories, right? And then there are just some things that come in that are what I call low priority features. They're not if you just look at a backlog, not everything is created equal. Some things are definitely going to be of lesser priority, but could by someone still be deemed crucial in the grand scheme of things. You still got to store it somewhere and you still got to address it, but is it a now thing? That's the question. So I always go on record and say there are, and the way I describe it in my Scrum training, and forgive me for using the word story, but I'm going to. Every single thing that you're being asked to do is a story of some type. Now, some stories are requests for new features. Some stories are research stories. Some stories are defects that require immediate attention. Some stories are improvement. Some stories are enablement. Some stories are debt. Some stories are architecture. I think you see where I'm going here. I think that if you just look at everything as a story and then declare what type of story it is, it's going to make it easier for you when it comes time to explain how work's being produced, when it comes time for forecasting, when it comes time for t-shirt sizing. It's just going to make life easy for you on every front because you'll have all that information there that you need. And I think that once you understand the difference between all those different types of work and how they line up, then you can start discussing why refinement. What is refinement? Why is it important? And I think that when I look at product backlog refinement or grooming, as some people like to call it, I think of it as an art form. You have to take backlog items and break them down into really small, manageable pieces that can easily be tackled during a sprint. The product owner and developers inspect the backlog and decide which items need to be refined for the upcoming sprint and prioritized. They also determine which items are going to be refined at a later stage for future sprints. It's critical for the product owner to strike a balance through refinement and avoiding excessive details that would muddle the team's understanding of what you're trying to do. So, the why of backlog refinement? Pretty simple. Um, Improve sprint planning. It's going to make it easier for sprint planning. Organized and clear items. It's going to make everything go smoother and faster. Transparent collaboration, making sure everyone is at the table answering the right questions. A shared understanding of a common goal. And clarity on commitment and cost of what we're actually trying to do. If you neglect doing backlog refinement, you're going to have the first telltale signs. You're going to have items start rolling over from one sprint to another. When you start seeing items roll over and need to be split over future sprints, that's usually indicative that you didn't do good refinement. Technical debt starts to escalate. You start to lose your focus. You start to see all different types of debt build and grow and mount. And then, of course, you end up with communication breakdowns between the team and the product owner, between the product owner and the stakeholders, and it ends up jeopardizing your product as a whole. So I think that if you're going to do refinement, you need to at least outline 1 hour a week per team to do an initial refinement, and then prior to sprint planning, an ordering refinement where they're making sure they understand everything that's going into the next sprint. But I think the whole concept of refinement is that it's a continual improvement. It happens every single week for 1 hour per team. It gives everybody a chance to get everything on the same page and to make sure that everything they're doing is running smooth. So that way you don't wind up with people who are disconnected and hanging chads and no understanding of what's happening. The refinement meeting is one of the most powerful meetings, and in my world, it's certainly part of Agile and should certainly be part of Scrum. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a question or comment, feel free to reach out to us, learn more at agiledad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.